another week. It's a whole other day's gone by. I mean, what happened to the weekend?
I know, it went really fast.
Did
well,
it
that's
ever?
because we had to jam a lot in. We had to celebrate Halloween.
Mm-hmm.
We had to take in an unbelievable Steeler game that was so tense.
That's crazy. Dude.
So tense. And we had to watch Pitt lose. So that's just...
And I watched Penn State lose.
Oh, good.
Yeah. And I went to the movies.
What?
Yeah.
It's amazing that you were able to squeeze all that in.
I know. And I did some yard work.
Okay. Terrific.
Other odds and ends as well.
That's really good. I say terrific a lot.
Terrific.
Yeah.
Well,
I get excited about things.
a lot of things are terrific in this world, so I'm glad, you know.
Okay. I mean, at least I'm not saying like that's wretched all the time.
Really? Right.
Could be worse.
Could be a lot worse.
I guess it could be worse.
Yeah, so you had a good weekend, which is
Yes.
good. Have you eaten any candy?
I'm glad you asked, John. Last night, after everyone went to bed, we planned our candy allotment so perfectly
Oh.
that when all the trick-or-treaters were gone, we had 7 tiny fun sizes left.
That's all.
And that's it. I felt really good about it. So I had 3 Snickers last night.
3 fun-size Snickers.
Yeah.
Woohoo! Whoa, Kath, you're out of control.
That seemed like a lot.
Whoa. Wait.
That's not a lot? You don't think that's a lot?
Kidding me? No, I got like sort of, quasi-sick last
Really?
night.
What did you eat?
Everything.
Did you?
Everything that was within reach.
Is that right? Like what?
Mounds bars, Heath bars, $100,000 bars,
$100,000?
Butterfingers,
What?
peppermint patties, Milky Ways, Baby Ruths, you name it, I was there.
Christy?
I don't have candy because I don't pass it out. So I
You didn't buy any
I
candy?
thought you were going to your parents' house.
I mean, yeah, but like I don't have to.
You didn't eat
I don't-
anything?
No,
What?
You didn't eat one piece of candy?
no.
What? You're not a candy person.
I am. Just.
No, you're not a
I'd
candy
like to fit in my pants.
There you go. There's nothing wrong
there
with
we go.
that.
Now I got 2 of you.
There's
I got
nothing wrong with
stereo fit in my pants.
There's
That's
nothing, I mean, it could be worse. You could be surrounded by 2 people that don't fit in their pants.
one word, elastic. There you go. Anyway, as we always do, Kath gives us the news stories for the day.
gonna
But
be
today it's kind of a little weird because there was apparently technical problems, the printer problems. So what are you going to do? You can do like the top 4, like kind of like off the top of your head.
I'm going to tell you what they... Well, hit the music.
All right, here's the top 4
For Monday, November 1st, 2021.
All Saints Day.
That wasn't part of the top 4,
Mine.
but I'm glad it is. There's some technological difficulties with producing the top 4 for today. So instead of reading them in a professional manner like I usually do at the beginning of each program, I'm going to do something different.
Freestyling it.
I'm going to tell you what they are.
Okay. I like it. Sorry.
Okay. Number 1. U.S. companies, John, are not believing that people actually have a religious exemption for getting out of the COVID vaccine.
I'd say with good reason.
Instead, they're thinking that people are using religion as an excuse to not submit to federal mandates for vaccines.
I agree.
Now, some of these organizations, including General Electric, including Amtrak trains, I'll talk about Amtrak in particular. Amtrak has a 30-point questionnaire that you have to answer if you are claiming a religious exemption.
30 questions.
And-
HR's working overtime for
And they
Amtrak.
ask you several things like, do you take Motrin?
What?
Do you know why? Because they say that
Christian Scientist.
No, they say that Motrin is produced by fetal cell lines.
So if you had a religious exemption, you would know that?
Well, or that if you were not taking Motrin, that proves to Amtrak that you take your religious exemption so seriously
Sure.
that you're not taking Motrin, and therefore you would not also
didn't know
be
that about
taking the
Motrin.
COVID vaccine.
I did not know that.
Well, I don't know that that's true. I'm just saying that that's what the Amtrak people are saying.
They're trying to fool you.
Yeah. I mean, it's not a surprise that people are taking the religious exemption.
Of
and,
course.
People who've never been in a church or haven't been in one in decades are saying, hey, no, seriously, it's going to prevent me from getting the shot.
Okay. Let's see, the city is now saying by December 23rd, I think, everybody in the city has to have it.
We'll see how many people pull religious exemptions.
Yep. Okay. Is that story number 1?
Number 2. That was number 1. Number 2. Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade in New York City is back this year.
Oh.
So last year, if you were following along, we were in the middle of a pandemic. And so the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade, which, to be honest with you, I don't think is that great shakes. I know you lived in New York for 20 years and you love it and you're all like New York-y and you feel like, New York state of mind about it. But it just seems like a lot of balloons to me.
If you are there in person, it's the best parade in the world. If you watch it on TV, it's kind of like, Disney on Ice or something like that. It's just cheeseball. But if you love a parade, I love a parade. If you love a parade, it's a great parade.
Well, last year's parade nobody loved because they were trying to keep socially distant. Nobody was allowed to show up. The people that were directing the balloons couldn't get too close to each other.
Right.
So it was just...
So it's back.
It's back.
Good.
The point is that it's back. They're planning on having something around 8,000 marchers in the parade, between people who are in marching bands, people who are controlling balloons, people who are working on floats. That
Believe me,
sort
if
of
your
thing.
kids were marching in the parade, you'd love it.
I guess I would.
Yeah.
But they're not.
All right.
Number 3. Do you remember all the flap at the last Summer Olympic Games about beach volleyball? That the men who play beach volleyball wear normal shorts and shirts.
Right.
But the women who play beach volleyball have to compete in bikinis.
Right.
And do you remember how the Norwegian Olympic team came out and said,
Not us.
you know what? Why are we doing this? Why do we have to go out and compete basically naked and the men get to wear shorts and a shirt?
Makes sense.
Well, today the ruling came down that no longer do they have to compete in bikinis.
From the Olympics.
It's not from the Olympic Committee. It's from the National Women's Handball Association, which includes a bunch of different sports where women would use their hands.
Good. I'm glad about that.
Can you believe we had to go through all this to get to that point?
It was a different era, Kath.
So, what era? What are we talking about?
The weird sexualization of women volleyball players.
Yeah, that was. You know that era.
Yeah.
When I look back at that era,
Yeah,
that really gets to me.
God, that's over.
It really gets
Thank
to
goodness.
me.
Holy smokes.
Anyway, so the next time you see women playing handball and beach volleyball, they're going to be wearing actual shorts
All right, good stuff.
normal people would be.
Good.
At number 4,
Yep.
Sesame Street's back.
Oh, I didn't know it was gone. I didn't know. I don't have kids.
But you know it moved to HBO.
I
You
did
didn't
not
know that either.
No, I'm sorry.
Okay, well, Sesame Street
It's all
moved.
news to me.
Sesame Street moved to HBO. So there's a new season that is going to be premiering, and it's going to include a lot of really fun people. Billie Eilish is going to be there. Naomi Osaka, who is the Japanese tennis star, is going to be there. Anderson .Paak, musician, is going to be there. It looks to be a really fun thing, and they're premiering a brand new portion of Sesame Street, which, thank you for researching the music, Christy, which will be Elmo's going to be solving crimes with his puppy.
So is this Sesame Street on PBS? That
Well, it's not on PBS. It's going to be on HBO, and then it airs live. I think a new one drops every Thursday.
Well, I don't get HBO.
Just wait a minute, and then starting in 2022, it'll be on PBS Kids.
all right.
Is your phone playing?
Oh, it's spam risk. That's
good.
Paul Simon. That's my.
That's good. No, I like that. It's interesting that you wouldn't shut off your phone being on the air here.
Like it's never happened.
Anyway,
Never happened to you.
it's your top 4 at 4.
All right. Kind of loose for a Monday afternoon. Anyway, we'll step aside for just a second because I could figure out some car warranty insurance.
Say, speaking of terrific, we have a great show. Tim and Kathy Keller will join us in the 5 o'clock hour. Coming up next, Greg Clugston live from the nation's capital.
Monday afternoon, we always go to the White House. Got a standing date with Greg Clugston, who is the SRN News White House correspondent. Greg, how are you today?
John, Kathy, hey there. I'm doing great. How are things?
Yeah, good.
Well, nice to see you, Greg. It's been a couple weeks. We've missed you. Just want you to know that the Monday 4:10 slot is not the same when you're not with us.
It's not, no. And people complain
Well, thank you.
about
It just kind of messes my whole week up, too.
Does
so
it?
there you go.
Oh, it makes us feel so happy.
You're good.
That's wonderful.
Thank
All right, so the president was not at the White House for Halloween. We talked on Friday about how the First Lady's, manager, whatever, said, the president and First Lady are very sorry not to be handing out treats. They did encourage everyone to be trick-or-treating outside. Which we were already planning on doing, so that was good. So not in Washington, D.C. What's it been like for the Bidens in Europe?
Yeah, so they weren't around, obviously, here for Halloween, so that was the main reason. And the president and the First Lady and the team from the White House all left Thursday for Europe. So they've been out for several days. They'll come back late tomorrow night, early Wednesday morning. The president started his trip in Rome, and the first thing that he did on Friday was visit with Pope Francis, which was a very highly anticipated meeting. It wasn't their first meeting. It was the fourth time that they had met in person. But of course, Biden is the second Catholic American president. And here with U.S. Catholic bishops in this country, he's been involved in sort of a controversy in terms of his abortion stance. Not just the president, but other high-profile elected officials and politicians who take a stance for abortion rights, yet are still recipients of Holy Communion in the Catholic Church. And this has been an issue of disagreement among Catholic bishops. The president said that he didn't talk about that issue specifically in terms of the abortion issue with the Pope, but he did say that the Pope said that he could continue to receive communion, as if Pope Francis was suggesting to the Catholic bishops that he didn't see that this should be a disqualifier.
All right. So they were the bishops wanted to sort of weaponize communion in some way.
Right.
And
but the president said that the Pope told him, quote, he was a good Catholic.
Good Catholic, right. All right. That's fine.
Right, which there will be people inside and outside of the Catholic faith tradition that would perhaps have a disagreement on that when it comes to the issue of the sanctity of life. But that is what the president reported that he was told by the Pope. And then from that meeting, you guys, he went on to the G20, or the Group of 20 Summit. This is a collection of the leaders from the 20.
We get Greg frozen up. What do you think happened?
We've never had Greg frozen up.
No,
have we?
huh?
This is
Hey,
a
Greg, you
first.
froze. Sorry. The audio's frozen, and so is the... Oh,
All
there
right,
he goes.
so-
Oh, hey, there you are. Are you back?
Oh, we got him back, but we got no audio.
No audio.
All right, we're going to
Hold on.
reestablish.
Wait, there it is.
Okay, Zoom.
Hey!
Zoom zipped out on us, but it came back.
Okay.
Good. Okay, so
Okay,
the
so
G20.
yeah, so talk about G20.
Yeah, so the G20, some of the similar subjects that we hear from the president and from world leaders at this event, at these kinds of annual events, in terms of reviving the economy, obviously COVID-19 and the pandemic and how it has affected the world economy and supply chain issues. Those were all on the agenda, as was climate, which is interesting because the statement that the leaders at the G20 put out over the weekend, yesterday, really, they didn't really offer anything new or concrete in terms of from the G20 perspective in terms of climate. And now the president and a lot of these same world leaders, along with a lot of other world leaders, are in Scotland for this UN-sponsored climate conference. And the president spoke at that event earlier today, as did the British Prime Minister, the Secretary General of the UN. Yeah, Queen Elizabeth even sent in a video message. So climate is the big subject there. And we're hearing the same message of urgency from a lot of these world leaders. They really feel like this is going to be a decisive decade in terms of action.
All right. So as the president is in Europe, of course, his $1 trillion+ legislation is still being looked at. Can you give us an update on Joe Manchin and legislation that may or may not still happen?
Yeah, let me first rewind to last week, John, because right before the president left on Thursday, he made a trip up to Capitol Hill to talk privately with House Democrats and basically say we need to get this done. As you know, as we've talked about here on this program, you and Kathy, this has been a Democratic Party issue for months and months, meaning the Democrats control the House, the Senate, and the White House, but they have not been able to come to terms on these huge spending packages. And what's interesting is Senator Manchin is one of a couple of key senators who has been really holding out for a smaller package. We were talking $3.5 trillion a few weeks ago. It's been cut in half, $1.75 trillion. And what happened today was Senator Manchin held a press conference a couple of hours ago, and he said, I'm looking at the numbers and they don't add up for me. He said, he used the word gimmicks and shell games in describing how Democrats are suggesting that they will pay for the spending that they are proposing in these plans.
I like that.
So the president was hoping to get, he announced that this framework was agreed to last Thursday. And while there maybe are some people on board, especially in the House and liberals in the House, Manchin is somebody who is shaking his head and saying the math is a little fuzzy for me. And so this is throwing yet another wrench in all of these negotiations.
That's powerful. Greg, how has Senator Manchin become the point person on all this?
Well, it's interesting because he's acting like a true moderate. For example, when Donald Trump was the president, he was unhappy with the tax cut that the
Right.
President Trump had passed. He felt it tilted too heavily toward the rich and corporations, and he was against it. This time, he has said to the Democrats, his fellow Democrats, look, this is not fiscally responsible. So he's really looking at it, not entirely perhaps, but more specifically through a fiscal responsibility lens in terms of what the country can afford. And after he was looking at this framework over the weekend, he's not happy with the details.
I was thinking today and reading about Senator Manchin that I wonder if the American culture has just become distanced from the idea of what a moderate actually is. And so the more polarized we've become, the more alien he seems.
I think that's a great point, Kathy, because this used to be more of the norm or the expected interaction on Capitol Hill. There were a lot of people, of course, over the years that thought maybe politicians were too buddy-buddy in terms of arguing over legislation during the day and having drinks and dinner, somewhere in Washington, D.C. in the evening. But there was something to the idea of being able to put political differences aside and to be able to meet together in a civil kind of way. And we've seen a real, move away from that kind of atmosphere in Washington, unfortunately. And I think you put your finger on something, saying that somebody who is saying in a consistent way to both Republican White Houses and Democratic White Houses, I don't think the numbers are good numbers. He is truly acting in a centrist way.
Good.
I like it.
Me too. Very
I really
much so.
do. Greg Clugston with us, SRN News White House correspondent. Greg, let's talk about what happened in the Supreme Court today. So I'm reading from the Wall Street Journal here. During nearly 3 hours of oral arguments, justices across the ideological spectrum, they say, explored how they might allow abortion rights advocates to challenge the law in federal court. So the Supreme Court asking skeptical questions. What do you know about it? And what could this mean?
I listened to part of the arguments which were provided live. There were no cameras, of course, in the U.S. Supreme Court, but we were getting live audio feeds. So it was very interesting to hear these oral arguments. And they were extended arguments today. They, typically on these cases, you might get an hour, 30 minutes for each side to make their arguments and answer questions from the justices. But this was a much longer session today. And there were two separate challenges to the Texas abortion law that the high court was hearing today. And this is an important distinction, you guys. The justices today in these arguments and with their upcoming ruling, not focusing on the actual ban of abortion in Texas. They are looking at a very specific legal question as to whether or not the Justice Department, representing the federal government, or abortion providers and clinics have a legal avenue to challenge the law, because the law in Texas was crafted in such a way that a lot of opponents are saying that it was really an end around the legal system and the federal government, almost precluding the Justice Department from being able to stand up and make a challenging lawsuit. So that's the very technical legal question that the
So it's not really.
justices are going to be answering.
This particular challenge is not about abortion.
Not
It's
abortion
more about the law.
specifically. but about the law, how it is structured, and who it prevents or doesn't prevent in terms of allowing what we normally expect are avenues for legal challenge if somebody wants to file a lawsuit.
I see. Well, the Supreme Court's going to be very busy here the next few weeks, are they not?
No, absolutely. In fact, 1 month from today, the court is taking up the Mississippi abortion case. That is going to be specifically on the issue of whether or not a state can enact and enforce the kind of abortion ban that Mississippi is doing. And this is really seen as more of a direct confrontation to the 1973 Roe v. Wade decision that legalized abortion in this country in the first place.
Next month, you say this gets underway.
1st of December. Yeah.
Thank you, Greg. Greg, before you leave us, we should ask about the past week or so. I've had my rake out. Have you yourself in the Virginia corridor?
Yeah, and I've got more pine cones in my yard for some reason this year than I have in previous years.
More pine cones.
Interesting.
But the same number of trees, so I can't figure that out.
Okay. Well, neither.
I blame the cicadas.
I think that's wise. None of the three of us are gifted in math, so we should probably just move on from that question. Also, we're about to be talking, as you leave us, Greg, about World Vegan Day. And so my question for you is, are you a vegan?
I'm not a vegan.
Are you a vegetarian?
I don't. Say that again?
Are you a vegetarian?
No, I'm not a vegetarian either.
Would you eat a Burger King vegan
I
burger?
eat my vegetables, but not exclusively. Yes.
So you never were tempted to adopt a vegan lifestyle for any reason?
I have not yet. No.
What's your opinion about Brussels sprouts?
I love broccoli. Brussels sprouts, not so much.
Me too.
Oh,
I feel
no.
the same way.
Listen, if I could make you guys my Brussels sprout recipe,
Don't
I think
bother.
no, I could mix it up for you. I was a late convert, but I've come around.
I don't think
I
so.
can bring you guys over to my side. I know I can.
Anyway, Greg, happy National
I'm willing to
Vegan Day.
try.
Okay, great.
Oh, geez, here we go.
Sorry, John. Sorry.
Greg Clugston, SRN News White House correspondent. He himself not a vegan on World Vegan Day. Thanks, Greg. Always a great pleasure.
Bye, Greg.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Coming up next, World Vegan Day. Did you ever consider it?
No.
Oh,
I have no desire.
maybe after this we will.
No, Greg already jumped ship. Have you had a plant burger, one of the vegan burgers?
I've had it.
Have you? Where'd you have it?
Yeah, I had one at Eaton Park.
Okay, there's your first mistake.
No, I think it was fine.
Okay, oh.
It's fine.
Wait, Chrissy just gave me a nod.
Remember that show? I forget what the show was. It was a comedy that was on maybe 5 or 6 years ago, and they were talking about like meat that was raised in a petri dish, in a
Oh, yeah,
factory
sure,
setting.
yeah, right.
And they did a taste test, and you know what the response was?
What's that?
It tastes like despair.
Tastes like this.
That's kind of what the.
Why would you bother?
Plus, there's so much filler in those burgers
Like sawdust.
that it's not a nutritious option. It really isn't. So I don't see the point.
The National Vegan Day.
It's not National Vegan Day.
Oh, international.
It's World Vegan Day.
World. I've got a nephew.
We're going to move to Galactic Vegan Day next year.
I got a nephew who lives in Portland, and he's an executive at Nike. And for many years, he himself was a vegan.
But no longer.
He had the worst complexion of any person you'd want to see. I mean,
So-
this guy was like 30, and he had like 35 zits on his head. And I love this. He's my nephew.
Yeah. And you thought maybe that was
I'd
because
like
of.
have a piece of meat might clear that skin up.
I don't know if there's a scientific like.
It beats Clearasil. Okay.
Can that be proved?
I don't know. Listen. I'm not calling family out. I'm just saying it's what I observed.
I went to the website of the Vegan Society today.
Yeah.
One world, many lives, our choice. To see if they could persuade me to go vegan.
Yeah. And?
Because I live a largely pescatarian
Yes, you do,
lifestyle,
'cause of your
right? Because of my
husband's
husband.
dietary needs.
Yeah, not because we're trying to save the world, but because he just can't eat meat.
I'm not opposed to that because we do eat too much meat.
Yeah, I feel like once we started doing it, it's been 6 years now, I think, and I probably have beef once every 4 or 5 months.
Oh my God! Once every 4 or 5 months. You know, people eat meat like 3 times a day.
Yeah, it's fun. It really once you get in the habit of it,
Probably much healthier.
it kind of feels weird when you have it. Anyway, okay, can I tell you why the Vegan Society thinks that I should become a vegan?
Yeah, please.
The first thing is for animals. Now, we've talked about this on the air.
Sure.
Both of us, I don't mean to speak for you, but I know that both of us believe that factory farming is an absolute disaster. And it's not what God calls us to do. Living in this way and utilizing animals in that way is heartless and cruel and doesn't live up
If
to
you
the
saw where your
mandate that
meat
God
came
gave
from,
us.
you would change
Exactly.
your eating habits.
Exactly.
The jungle.
So I really appreciate that portion. Then it talks about health. It talks about the fact that a vegan diet is suitable for every age and stage of life. Vegan diets have been linked with lower blood pressure and cholesterol and lower rates of heart disease, type 2 diabetes, and some types of cancer. Okay.
I'm sure.
Also better for the environment, they say. One of the most effective things an individual can do to lower their carbon footprint is to avoid all animal products.
Carbon footprint.
Then it talks about why meat and dairy is bad for the environment, from crops and water required to feed the animals to the transport and other processes involved from farm to fork.
Okay.
Also, am I persuading you?
No.
Okay. Just like veganism is the sustainable option when it comes to looking after our planet, plant-based living is also a more sustainable way of feeding the human family.
Okay, good.
So, okay, this is not okay. This also, one of my big questions has been, if I'm vegetarian, why can't I eat an egg? It's not like an egg. I'm eating a chicken. You know, it's not like milk is hurting the
Well,
cow.
have you seen the chicken egg production thing? It's like
I certainly
factory as
have.
well,
I certainly
right?
have, which is why I think you should do free-range eggs.
Whatever.
I really do think that you should do that. But anyway, why not? Why don't vegans eat eggs? So this talks.
What about fish?
This talks. I'm not to fish yet, John.
I got 41
Don't
seconds.
push me ahead.
You better fish me up.
The suffering caused by the dairy and egg industry is probably less well publicized than the plight of factory farmed animals, but it necessitates the death of countless male calves that are of no use to the dairy farmer, as well as the premature death of cows slaughtered when their milk production decreases.
Listen, I'm changing the channel. I've had it. It's so depressing. It's so
I
sad.
know. Okay.
It is.
And Christy, did you ever think of being a vegan?
Absolutely not.
Okay,
Excellent.
great. I haven't either.
No, look, you've convinced no one.
I'm just saying
And
that
made us
I
feel
asked
bad.
the Vegan Society to convince me. I told you what they said. You can make your own choices.
Holy
It's
moly.
World Vegan Day, people.
Jeez Louise. I'm having a burger.
Are you?
Celebrate. At this point, yeah. Maybe a double. A Wendy's double.
Coming up next, Sarah Eckhoff Zylstra will be back with us. The hard blessing of conjoined twins. Interesting story. Stay with us. When I think about having twins, my mom was a twin. And it was a big joke in our family when my grandmother would tell the story, because my grandmother, who gave birth to my mom and her twin in 1932, had no idea she was having twins.
That was the time there was no
They were
ultrasound or anything like that.
Right. They were in the Depression. My grandfather was unemployed. They had 2 older boys, and they were thinking they were going to have one child. And so she gave birth to my aunt, who emerged first, and then the obstetrician said something I can't repeat on family radio, and said, "Here comes another one." And then my mother came out.
Wow.
And they were so shocked that they'd had 2 kids. They didn't even know what to name my mother. They didn't even have any. They were panicked and they had no name They just named her after my grandmother. We'll just call her Nancy.
But how exciting.
It wasn't exciting
And
at
terrifying.
all
It
at that moment.
It was terrifying for them.
It was overwhelming, and it was not good news.
Yeah.
Now, of course,
Another mouth to feed
it was
during the Depression.
right. Your children grow up. You love your children. Then you feel terrible about the times when you were panicked, right? But that was the real story for my grandparents. The story that Sarah Eckhoff Zylstra tells us in the Gospel Coalition is something that just takes a story like that to a whole other level. Sarah's with us again today. She's also the co-author of a great book called Gospel Bound: Living with Resolute Hope in an Anxious Age. Sarah, we're glad you're back with us.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's fun to be here.
Yeah, it's our pleasure.
Yeah, so this is different than my grandmother's story about giving birth to my mom and thinking that they weren't going to be able to survive because of finances. This story of conjoined twins, it was really humbling to even imagine that. So tell us the story, Sarah.
It reminds me a little bit of your grandma's story, because before they went in for the ultrasound, they didn't know they were having twins. This is a couple, a pastor in Birmingham and his wife, and they had 3 kids and were really debating over having a 4th, and decided to go ahead and go for it. And so, got pregnant with the 4th child and went in, and it turned out it was twins. And then it turned out that they were conjoined. And conjoined twins, of course, are exceptionally rare. And then to have conjoined twins survive is even more rare yet. And so this is a family, they're babies. They have 2 girls. They're named Susanna and Elizabeth, and they were born in April. And they have been in the hospital with them ever since, waiting for a separation. But it is just a story of a lot of darkness and a lot of waiting, and then also a lot of beauty as God takes care of this family.
Wow. So Dwight and Stephanie Castle have these conjoined twins. And I'm reading your piece, the Gospel Coalition. Sarah, you talk about that in the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, there have been 123 conjoined twins that were presented to the hospital, but only 25 pairs were able to be separated.
Well, but the numbers are even crazier than that, because if you'll see, the 123 was since 1995, so in the last 25, 26 years. And the 25 pairs was since 1957.
Oh my
so
gosh.
the success rate is even much lower than that. It's almost impossible. So, but these girls are really lucky in a sense. They share a liver and part of a small intestines and pancreas, but they don't share a heart. They said to me, if you share a heart, that's pretty much a death sentence. And so you just can't survive with 2 bodies on 1 heart. But they are able to be separated, and they're waiting. Their surgery will be December 10. So right now the girls have, there's like a silicone implant they put in them, and they're expanding it. It's like when you're pregnant and your skin keeps stretching. They're stretching out their skin so that after they do the surgery, they'll have their own skin to cover the wound.
Wow. So what do they share? You said liver, pancreas,
Yep.
and just skin.
Small intestine.
Something about the netting around their hearts, right?
Yep. The lining around their hearts they share. So that is able to be separated.
Can you imagine the
No.
terror you must feel
And
as a parent?
I can't imagine. And how do you separate a liver? I guess each gets part of the liver, and then I know livers.
The liver grows,
I know
doesn't
the
it?
And then they'll
liver.
grow back.
I know liver cells can reproduce. Okay, so I'm thinking about the other 3 kids that this couple has, and I just was like grieving reading your article about how the 7 of them have been together less than an hour since this whole trial began. I can't imagine what the other 3 kids are thinking. I mean, it's not like they're 12, 14, and 16. I mean, they're little kids.
They are little kids. They are 7, 4, and 3, so they're small. And originally when Dwight and Stephanie they live in Birmingham, but the hospital that you go to is in Philadelphia. They're the ones who do conjoined twins. And so they figured we'll go there and have the babies, and then we'll come home and wait for the separation surgery. But it turned out they had to stay. So first they said, okay, kids, we're just going to go have the babies and be back. But it was, they left them for 2 months before they realized we're not going to be back. We've got to relocate our whole family. So it's a tremendous amount of separation. And then because of COVID, the kids can't come into the hospital.
Oh my gosh.
And so it's just a lot of separation. I just feel for them. I feel like there's a lot of counseling in their future because there's just a lot of tears every time they leave them. So it's just been a really difficult thing to do with older kids at home.
Wow. So Sarah, Kath and I were talking a while ago about what would your life be like if you weren't part of a church family? And I'm sure Dwight and Stephanie Castle, their church family has stepped in and really helped things along.
It was just such a beautiful thing because they said it's so dark. Sometimes we can't even believe. Sometimes we can't even pray. Sometimes you're so worried and you're so sick about everything that's happening. And they said when we can't believe and when we don't feel like God is there, he is embodied in his church, and those church people are physically believing for us and praying for us. They bring meals. They, took care of the kids when they're gone. They bring the kids to soccer games and cheer for them. They move them whenever they need to be moved to a different place. And that was their church in Birmingham. Well, when they moved up to Philadelphia, they have cousins there, and they said their cousins' churches have stepped in. They've given them cars. They pray for them publicly, like free photography sessions, free haircuts. Of course, once this goes out online, you get all kinds of financial support and emotional support from Christians across the globe. And they said that has been, like, when we can't do it, God, Jesus' body, his physical body through the church is what's carrying us through. And I thought that was remarkable.
Fabulous. Yeah. Now, even in the midst of it all, one of the babies had an opening in her heart, but God doing his own work is helping to heal this baby before the conjoinment takes place.
Yeah, so Elizabeth has a hole in her heart, and they thought they were going to have to do a surgery before they did the separation so that they could fix that enough that she'd survive the separation. Well, this is fraught with all kinds of stuff. The girls are quite small. They both have to go under anesthesia, and so they just prayed like crazy, please, God, let us not have to do this surgery. And so they asked the cardiac surgeon to go in one more time and take a look. And he said, you're not going to believe this, but the body is doing what the surgery would have done. Wow. They said, you can see remarkable places where God is at work. And yet, they said, we also prayed like crazy that they would not be conjoined, that would be healed. And that prayer wasn't answered. So they just said, we're in a place of trusting God. Like, if they both make it through the surgery, we will trust God. If one of them makes it through surgery, we will trust God. If neither one does, no matter what happens, we are trusting in the goodness of God.
Sarah Eckhoff Zylstra is with us, senior writer and Faith at Work editor for the Gospel Coalition, also the co-author of Gospel Bound, Living with Resolute Hope in an Anxious Age. The one part of your story, Sarah, that jumped out at me is you asked, how did God prepare them for what they're going through now? And Dwight told the story about a young boy that they had fostered for a while. Can you tell that story?
I just wondered about that because it's such a heavy thing for people to carry around. So I wondered if, something else had happened to prepare them. And they said after their first son, they suffered some secondary infertility. And so they fostered for a while a little boy. The whole first year of his life, they had him. And then he went back to live with his mother. And they had a good relationship for a couple of years. And then things started to get messy, and she backed away from them. And so it's been a couple of years since they saw him. Now, they thought he was going to be their son. So that is something that has been so hard. And they said, before that, we were able to see God's goodness, like to kind of understand or be able to, figure out, okay, I can see a silver lining here in almost every dark situation. And that was the first time they had a situation that was so hard and so dark, they couldn't see what God was doing. They didn't even really get a glimpse of the goodness there. And they said, walking into this, having that practice of holding on when things are dark and you don't see any glimmers of light prepared them to walk into this dark situation.
Fabulous. We're talking about the hard blessing of conjoined twins. So, Sarah, you said the operation should take place December the 10th. Talk to us about the mechanics of that. How long is it expected to last that this very delicate operation would unfold?
I know. I wish I knew the answer to that question. I do not. I know that it is happening on December 10. I know it cannot come soon enough. If you think to a 6-month-old baby, they're starting to move quite a bit.
Right.
Some even are starting to crawl. And so that's a pretty big baby to be attached to her sister all the time. They're attached from about their chest to their belly button is where they're conjoined. I know that you can, if you want to follow them and pay attention to this and see how they're doing, you can go to Castle Conjoined Twins on Facebook. And they put updates there once in a while that you can kind of follow along and pray for them and see how their journey is going.
Castle Conjoined Twins
Wow.
on Facebook. That's good.
Well, Sarah, well, you did a great job retelling their story and, kind of allowing us to enter into it. And so we're grateful for you being back and, first of all, doing good print work and then talking to us about it.
Yeah, you bet. I'm so glad you're interested. This is, even in the dark spots, you can see where God is working, and it's just so encouraging to see that.
That's
Yeah.
fabulous.
Sarah Eckhoff-Zylstra, check out this article in the Gospel Coalition. What's the title of the article, John?
It is called The Hard Blessing of Conjoined Twins.
Wow, it's fabulous. All right.
Castle Conjoined on Facebook.
Yeah,
I wanna
check
see
it out.
that as well.
Coming up next, the 5 most valuable college majors.
The 5 most valuable and 5 least valuable college majors.
Communications. I'm sure that's right at there for the most valuable.
Nope, it's not.
It's hard to believe.
Maybe
You
on
guys.
the other end of that.
Okay.
Yeah.
What do you have?
The 5 most valuable, no surprise, are all STEM degrees. Okay? Just wanted you to know that.
STEM.
The number of STEM degrees awarded by universities grew by 62% from 2010 to 2018.
Okay.
So the most, let me see, I'll go from number 5. Transportation, Sciences, and Technology degree.
Transportation sciences.
And
Is that
technology
like-
degree.
I don't even know what that is. Is that like
You're not
figuring
driving
out
a
like
bus, although you probably make
or like mass transit, right? That would be trains, planes, and automobiles.
subways. Yeah, sure. Median annual income out of the gate, $86,000. Unemployment rate is 1.8%. Okay.
Okay. Clearly, we made a mistake not going in that direction.
Yeah. And here's the worst part of it. It skips number 4.
Oh,
So the number 3
Yeah.
is computer engineering.
okay.
Okay.
We can only imagine what 4 was.
Okay. Number 2 is construction services.
Okay.
And the number 1 degree that is the most valuable is architectural engineering. How about that? Architectural engineering.
That's a surprise to me.
I thought so,
that
too.
would be number 1.
yeah.
Okay. What about? Do you have least valuable also?
Let me see. Least valuable.
Because that's where we're going to come in strong, I think.
Okay. Let me go from. Let me see. Yeah, I do. Bottom 5.
Yeah, I'm ready.
Clinical psychology.
Oh,
I'm surprised at
really?
that. You'd be
After
crushing that. Mm-hmm.
COVID, seems like everybody would need a clinical psychologist.
Composition and speech.
What does that mean?
Someone who's got an English major who's also.
Yeah,
looking at-
that was my first mistake, I guess.
Drama and and theater arts.
Well, we're very strong at this end of the spectrum.
Yeah.
Yep.
And the least valuable is visual and performing arts. Now listen,
That's
good.
like all 3 of us. That's tragic.
And here we
really.
sit.
Okay.
Trying to tell you, don't do like we did. Make your children grow up to be STEM babies.
Oh my gosh. Listen,
babies.
okay. So if you were working in the STEM industry, Christy
I would be crying a lot.
Stockdale, I
Wait.
ask you now.
Wait, I have number 4.
Oh, you do?
Oh, what
Yeah,
is
it's aerospace engineering.
Of course.
Another thing we're unqualified
Yeah,
for.
yeah.
Sorry, go ahead. Ask the
Okay,
question.
if you were working in a STEM field, Christy,
How's your math skills?
how do you?
They're not good.
Yeah.
Okay,
How's your math skills?
mine are really terrible.
Mine are the worst. So
Yeah.
we'll see. I mean, we
Here's-
have found our path here.
We have. Here's
I
my
have no
problem.
complaints
Here's my
where I am.
problem with
I love
mathematics.
this.
Here's my problem with mathematics.
What?
Is that I'll do
is gonna be
I'll do
good.
a math problem. I was just doing an algebra problem the other day
Yeah.
because I had something I was trying to figure out. It's a long story. Anyway, I got to the end and the answer that I achieved I recognized was impossible.
You achieved it.
Okay, that was just not the correct answer.
It's impossible.
But looking back through my decision making in my algebraic equation, I felt very confident in
Did
each
you?
step. Yes.
Of course.
And then I got a wrong answer. That was always how math was for me.
Right.
As I would look back and I'd say, no, I feel really good about each one of those things. And I would still be wrong.
Right. At the end of the problem, you should say, believe. Believe. I believe. I believe this is right.
I found that to be
And then
very
just sell
frustrating.
it. Right? Mm-hmm. My wife uses math every day. When I walk into where she works, I'm like, I'd be just crying.
I would be
Seriously.
too.
I remember sitting as a kid at my parents' kitchen table, crying over my math homework, and I was 24. Just kidding, but I was crying.
When I was in 10th grade, when I was in high school and junior high, there were these things called progress reports.
Oh yeah, I remember.
Do you remember
progress
progress
reports.
reports?
Yeah.
Okay.
They were the worst.
Right. So you'd either get them if you were doing like super well or you were failing, right?
Yeah.
So I got 2 on the same day. And my dad called me in a little meeting in his office to talk about them.
Yeah.
One was I was failing geometry, and the other one is I had the highest grade in the class in metal shop.
Okay. And he encouraged you to do what?
He said, "What is happening?"
No.
And I said, "I'm bad in geometry, but I'm feeling very strong about my."
Right. I can make you a muffler.
I was making a grill set.
Hey, do you still have it?
I finally had to throw it away because it hadn't. I mean, it lasted a
Stand
long
the test
time,
of
but I
time.
think it was.
All right. Go grill set. Forget those math problems.
Halloween was last night,
Yep.
and it was so much fun in my neighborhood.
Oh, mine too.
What about yours?
Well, my neighborhood proper, not so much because of the structure of the streets and the houses. We don't get any kids.
Yeah.
Although I did I went to my sister's house, which is a much, much better street for Halloween. So we typically go and hang out with her. Mm-hmm. Ton of kids. On our street, I left out a little container. There was some candy, which surprised me, but not much. Some
Okay.
candy was missing, I should say. So a few kids came by. Then no one's coming up to my house.
Of course not, because you live at the top of a hill. What about, do you have any Halloween traditions that you were carrying out last night?
No, just
Okay.
eating candy.
Okay,
Yeah.
great.
We go to my sister's house. We sit at the bottom of her driveway, and we eat pizza and drink some sodas, and then we hand out gigantic chunks of candy to all these little kids that come by. It's so much fun.
It is
We
fun.
saw so many people in the neighborhood, and I
So
don't
do
know
we.
anybody, but I wanted to know, hey, what do you
Fuss all over the creative
I
outfits
did.
and
I
everything
fussed
like
over
that.
everybody. My
Sure.
sister was a little embarrassed by me.
That's fine. I've been embarrassed by you before, and we're still fine.
That happens.
We have a tradition of dueling soups for Halloween.
Dueling soups.
Mm-hmm.
What?
You make two soups, and then you eat them both, and you decide which one you prefer.
Really? That's
We've
unusual.
done. I've done it for a long, long time.
Really?
So last night we did dueling soups.
And
I did a 16-bean pasta fajoule.
sounds pretty good.
Yeah, and sweet potato.
Really? Mm-hmm. Are you a little tooty today?
No, I'm not. Thank you for asking.
It's just bean soup.
I
mean,
appreciate that type of personal
I'm
inquiry.
sitting
But,
here in a closed room with you, just
No.
wondering about it. That's all. Just saying.
but we voted for the 16-bean last night. Mm-hmm. The sweet potato was good. It's a classic.
Yeah.
But we think that the 16-bean takes it to another level.
Excellent.
That's a lot of beans.
You telling me? So I brought it up.
For goodness sake.
Yeah.
Anyway, favorite costume that you saw last night?
Oh, we saw a kid. A kid showed up. I bet he was 5. He couldn't have been maybe 6. He was a little tiny kid, and he was dressed like even before the music. He was dressed like Michael Jackson.
Love it.
And then his mom and dad were like trailing behind him, and somehow they had it wasn't a boom box, but there was music, and they were playing
great.
Thriller.
That's awesome.
And this kid was moving his little feet around and trying to do a moonwalk thing.
Yeah.
Oh, we were like cheering him on, and he was super excited.
That's really
oh
fun.
man, was he like all over the street?
That's good.
I loved it. How about you?
That's good. Oh, inflatable chicken. I shared it on social media.
Inflatable chicken.
Yeah. The inflatable chicken was so hilarious that every time we would sight it, we would run outside so that we could catch a glimpse.
Really?
Because we live in a neighborhood with like definitive blocks, and so
Yeah.
people come by our house multiple times. Every time we saw the chicken was a treat.
Cheering him. Mm-hmm. How old was the person?
No idea. Could not get. It was a girl inside.
You
That's
knew it was
all
a
I
girl?
knew. It was a girl.
How did you know that?
Because when they came up to get candy, I said that is an amazing rooster, and all of her friends said she's a chicken.
Oh, okay, that's good.
And I was like, well, duh. Of course,
Sorry, I did not know,
I should
right.
have thought that was a chicken.
All right. Well, I've been thinking about this day because, the community aspect of Halloween, I believe, cannot be overstated, especially in these weird and trying times where we need community more than ever, right? So I've been thinking about this because, growing up, we would go out and trick or treat either with, my whole family, all my brothers and sisters, and then friends. And then at 8 o'clock the next morning, all those family and friends would be in the pews of the church because today, always the day after Halloween, is All Saints Day. So 1 minute, you'd be stuffing your face with Reese's or whatnot, and then you find yourself a few hours later, after a short night's sleep, in the pews together worshiping. And I think All Saints Day, it's not necessarily celebrated here in the United States like it is in many other countries around the world. It's a different feel. But to honor those saints who have gone before us, who we are confident are in heaven, right? That is the essential. And of course, tomorrow is All Souls Day, which is honoring our fallen family and friends, the souls also gone before us. Two very, very particular All Saints Day, All Souls Day. This is not part of your upbringing.
No, not at all. Although I come from a Polish family, and this was, we never celebrated it, not that, at least that I can remember, or not a celebration or an observation. But I saw a Facebook post from one of my cousins that lives in Poland. It's a national holiday
Cousin Edward.
in Poland, cousin Edward, and he was showing. So all of the graves are decorated profusely in his part of the country, and he was showing, relatives of ours who have passed away and how he decorated their graves. I mean, looking at the cemetery from far away, all you can see are flowers.
Beautiful.
It's amazing.
It's a national
Did you see his
holiday.
post?
I did.
Yeah.
It's a national holiday, All Saints Day, in
Yeah.
Poland, as it is in many parts of this world. I mean, the Philippines, all over. If you do a quick search today, I would encourage you, just because out of curiosity, All Saints Day, and see the number of countries around the world. It transcends Christian culture. It becomes part of the culture itself. The idea of All Saints Day. I just love it. It's just kind of, and we don't have that. I mean, the idea of a national day of collective thinking about those who have gone before us. I mean, I would say probably the closest thing we have to that is recently would be September 11th, right? Memorial
Day.
But Memorial Day is specifically, for the war.
People in the military.
Yes. War dead. But
Yeah, that's a good point. We don't really have something like that.
is it interesting to me, right? Isn't it interesting to you, the idea of the cultural significance, or just to say, I mean, I was thinking, I do a devotional every day, an audio devotional, and in the devotional today, they were saying, think of those in your life who have gone before you, and I conjured up, of course, my parents and all my aunt, and I said their names out loud and pictured their faces before me. Some of them have been gone since I was a little boy, but I still remember them. And they always say, people are not forgotten until, we can no longer remember their names. And all those people, I mean, thousands and thousands of people you connected with who are no longer here on this earth, and what they meant to you growing up, and how the impact they've had on your life. I think it's important that we mark that in some way.
Our friend Tish Harrison Warren, she writes a weekly piece for the New York Times, and the very first one that she wrote, which was probably now 6 weeks ago or something like that, she wrote about about that concept, John, where she said that in her training as an Anglican priest, someone had told her, when you go to offer the elements to your congregation,
The communion elements.
the communion elements. Imagine that not only are the people on one side of the, whatever the barrier is, and you're on the other side, it's the priest who's offering them.
Yes.
But imagine that wall goes not just through the room, but also through all of time. And so there are people there are believers who you are communing with from all history.
Yes.
Not just your loved ones, but people who've believed in Jesus from every tribe and nation and language and people.
The billions of us.
And what if we thought about that
I love it.
during communion? Wouldn't that enlarge our perspective of what the meal is?
Yeah, the communion of the saints is what they say it is, right? Yeah. So anyway, happy All Saints Day to you, and take a moment to consider that, please.
Yeah.
We'll step away. When we do come back, the almost world-famous postal carrier and his wife, Tim and Kathy Keller, will join us in just a few minutes. ever wonder about your life and you think, what if?
Yeah. What
What
if I'd
if?
done that other thing or gone to that other place?
If that person had not shown up, or that, there's all these little different connections in our lives. And sometimes it just takes one thing to throw you into a whole other place, right? Well, Tim and Kathy Keller are with us. Tim and Kathy Keller started Redeemer Presbyterian Church in Manhattan way back in 1989. Before that, like a lot of people, right, they did other things. And Tim and Kathy, thanks for being with us. I mean, at some point, you may have been like world famous postal carriers.
Yes, that's right. Because we had a job ready for us at the Woburn Post Office in Massachusetts, and we never got there because we got a call to a church in Virginia. So our postal service career never got off the ground.
Okay, tell us that story. Why was postal carrier a career position you both considered?
Yeah, Karen.
Kathy, you want to go ahead?
We don't have her.
Oh, we lost her. Somebody needs to call her
No,
back.
are you there?
Oh,
Are you
there
there?
she is.
Oh, yeah, she's
We got
here.
Here I am.
Hey,
Okay,
Oh, there
sorry.
she is.
Yeah, so
The week before we got married, Tim had to sever his ties with the denomination he had belonged to because he could no longer sign their statement of faith, which believed that you could reach earthly perfection in this life, and
Really?
he just couldn't believe that anymore.
hard to believe that, right?
Yeah.
Well, listen, they're good people, but they were a kind of a denomination I couldn't. I love them, but I couldn't be in it anymore. I changed some of my understanding of how the Bible taught. So what Kathy's saying was I was actually a person looking for a church without really having a denomination. So we were not sure I was going to be able to get
We
a
had
church.
we had no denominational ties, and it takes a long time to be a member of a church and to be well known and go under care and go through all of the administrative hoops. So we took the postal carrier exam and actually got past it and appointed because we didn't have any hopes of having a church. And then Tim got a call to be a 3-month interim at a church in Hopewell, Virginia, where we stayed for 9 years. So
Wow.
I love that so much.
Okay, so I mean, is it a silly question? I don't think it's a silly question. What would your life have been like if you were postal carriers?
interesting, I think.
Yeah.
Probably be in better shape, walking
Well, we
around.
probably would have, I think, since we were going to school up in New England, one of the things that would have probably changed, we would have put our roots down deeper.
Okay.
And we might have had our first child there. And there's a tendency, it could have been that whatever I did, I would have stayed in New England, which would have been different. Actually, I've got a story, though, for you. I'm going to try to be really fast.
You don't have to be that fast, Tim.
Well, it's true, though. Kathy pointed out the fact that when I was at seminary, Gordon Conwell, we had a teacher there who was taught a couple of courses, and it convinced me that I probably should be a Presbyterian rather than a Methodist or a Baptist or something else. I mean, it's I think most Christians don't have to worry too much about those differences of baptism and stuff like that. But if you're a minister, you've got to know what you believe. So I switched over to become a Presbyterian the last semester, and that's why I'm where I am today. But that wouldn't have happened unless that particular man who was British, had gotten a visa to come over and teach. Just
We
the
can
last
name
minute.
names. Andrew Lincoln.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well,
yeah.
no, baby, don't worry about it because nobody. Anyway, but the reason why he was able to get there at a time in which it was very hard to get a visa was because there was actually a seminary student at the time named Mike Ford, who was actually the son of Gerald Ford,
Whoa.
and he opened some doors for us to get the guy over there. The reason why he was the son of the president of the United States was because, as you know, Nixon had resigned.
Yeah.
The reason he had resigned was actually because some people who had put a bug in the Democratic National Convention committee office, they put a bug in there, but they forgot to latch the door. And therefore, a night watchman realized the door was unlatched, went in and figured it out. Now, if that door had never been latched, I would never become a Presbyterian. I never
When
would have
Tim
started
tells that
Redeemer.
story, he
I would
says,
never started
"Watergate
Redeemer
is for
Presbyterian
you."
Church. Yes, Kathy always says there's a lot of reasons why in the Lord's counsel and wisdom Watergate happened, but for one, we used to say to people at Redeemer, Watergate happened for you. Because I would never have come here if it wasn't for that.
That's great.
That's incredibly deep, Tim.
My kingdom for a door latch.
Really? Okay, so talk about those days before the postal carrier option was a reality. You were in school then at Gordon Conwell. Were you both in school together? What was that
Yes.
like?
Yep.
Okay.
Kathy?
Well, Tim and I had known of each other. He went to college with my sister, but we didn't really know each other until we showed up at Gordon Conwell. I was doing my Master of Theology degree, and he was doing his MDiv, and our friendship blossomed. And at a certain point, I thought it would go further, and then it just didn't, and it didn't, and it didn't. So one Christmas, or just before Christmas break, I gave him the famous pearls before swine speech. Have I told you this story
Yes,
before?
you have.
Okay.
I like it.
Well,
No.
It's a good
There's
story.
no reason not to tell it again.
Well, I said, we're told not to cast our pearls before swine, not because pigs are, horrible and bad and evil, but just because they can't appreciate a pearl. They'd rather have a corn cob or something. And if you can't see me as your life partner, I can't just stand here waiting for you to notice me, because every day you don't feels like a rejection to me, and I can't keep taking that, which I think a lot of Christian women do. They keep having these platonic friendships, and the guys are getting all they want out of the friendship. Companionship if they want to go out to a dinner or movie, or, well, who did that in the last 2 years, but,
Right.
a level of companionship that doesn't include commitment. But at any rate, I said, we just can't go on just being best friends, because I just can't take the feeling that somehow I'm being weighed and found wanting. Unfortunately, we had already done all the paperwork for us to both spend the semester at a different seminary for the January term, and we were going to be living with a deaconess at a church in her house in Philadelphia, and pretty much seeing each other 24/7 after I was formally cutting off our friendship. So Tim spent a long, hard Christmas thinking about it and made the decision that he did want our relationship to progress, and so
Good move, Tim.
we moved in.
Yes, and the rest is history.
Yes. Okay,
The
so
rest is history.
now, Tim, you and Kath have been traveling lately, and you went back to Gordon Conwell, right?
Actually, yeah, we ventured out. We're still being pretty careful because, as I think we've mentioned before, it's not really just COVID for me. I really
Sure.
can't get a flu bug, or it's winter is coming on. It's getting colder. Anything that stops my chemo, since I have pancreatic cancer, and it's been keeping the cancer at bay, which is great. But you don't want to do anything to interrupt the chemo. So we've been careful. But we actually did take a train ride. To visit friends. And we visited Gordon Conwell and visited the area around there, and it was a lovely, lovely time, yes.
Yeah,
Fabulous.
so what was that like? I mean, when you're thinking back to who you were then and what you knew, what you didn't know.
And your circle of friends, I mean, how did that all work?
Well, we stayed with our friend Louise Midwood. She and her husband David and their family, their three daughters, are mentioned as the people that we dedicated songs of Jesus to, because they were our very closest friends. And David has gone on ahead. He died 7 years ago last month. And we stayed with Louise, and she drove us around, and we saw all of our old stamping grounds and some people that we know who are at Gordon Conwell now.
It was very bittersweet in this sense. It was lovely,
Yeah.
but it also reminds you that life is short.
Yeah.
I mean, when you're with people, some of whom are alive, some of whom have gone on, you think back on all your 40 years of friendship and all the work we did together, and yet it seems very fast. I mean,
Yes.
and you two are not as old as we are, but you're old enough to know how fast it goes.
That's true.
And and I think actually, we as Christians, we tell ourselves we're mortal, time is short. Only one life, so soon it's past. Only what's done for Christ will last. That little saying, and we say that to ourselves. In fact, we have it on the back of we actually have it up on the wall and behind in our kitchen. But it's not until you actually have friends who start to die and you get cancer and all that, you realize, ooh, it really is fast, and we really do have to make sure that we're living for Christ and not just twiddling our thumbs. So it's lovely. It was wonderful, and yet it was at the same time it reminded us, life is short. So.
Tim and Kathy Keller are with us. Tim's the founding pastor of Redeemer Presbyterian Church in Manhattan. He started it in 1989 with his wife, Kath, who we're also talking to as well, and also their 3 young sons at the time, and they led the church for 28 years. Tim's books include the New York Times bestselling The Reason for God. His latest one is Hope in Times of Fear, the Resurrection and the Meaning of Easter.
And Kathy is a Pittsburgher. She's
Kathy's a
Monroeville
Pittsburgher.
native. Yeah.
And, right, we keep bringing that up, Tim. It's like we keep...
Oh, yeah. Sons just had a reunion and went to the Steelers game. I don't know. Last
Yesterday.
They just,
2 weeks ago.
no. The one they beat the. Forgive me. Who was the last?
Well, we beat
Yeah, it was the last game they won.
They beat the Browns
No,
yesterday.
they were
friends.
1-3, but then they were 1-3, which is really bad. But then they won a game in Heinz Field.
Sorry, I don't remember who we played 2 weeks ago.
So you know we're people of a certain age.
Or that we're just really committed to the present is what I'm saying.
I know. Well, my sons they even practiced. They called them the Stillers.
Hey, good.
Of course, I told them. I said, "Look, you can't go back to Pittsburgh if you don't learn the language."
Oh, was it the Seahawks game?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, good. So they've got a little.
That's right.
The Seahawks. So they've got a little Yinzer in them, right?
Oh, yes.
They were
very
nostalgic
Steeler
about
fans
Pittsburgh.
from birth.
And they still are. Yeah, they are major Steeler fans.
Excellent.
They just picked it up through the genetics, I think.
Very
Well,
good.
plus it's God's will. I think that's a bit of predestination.
That's right. They're Christians, and of course they figured that out too.
Right. Election, spans the spheres.
Perfection on earth.
Right. Okay. So we heard your boys were visiting. So what's it like? Now you're living. What are your names? You're not Grandma and Grandpa. You are
Pap?
Mimi and Papa.
Okay,
Papa.
Mimi and Papa. So you're visiting your grandkids right now?
No, we did last weekend. We were
We
in
did. We
Winston-Salem
actually
to
just
see
got
our-
back yesterday. That was the other thing we did. We went down to North Carolina,
Nice.
and that's where the other grandchildren are. We have 5 up here in the city and 2 down there.
Okay.
And that was also it's a stretch for us because we're still trying to.
Yeah, and
stay
I
healthy,
brought
but
back
it
a
was
cough and a cold as a result. So
Yes, but Kathy's
I'm
a
going
little
to,
worried
when
about
we're
that.
done talking, I'm heading over to get a COVID test to
Oh,
be
yeah,
sure
yeah,
that that's
yeah.
not what it is.
Okay. All right. So
Which we don't.
you're out there sort of running the gamut because winter is coming upon us soon. And so you're going to be sort of ensconced in Manhattan for better or worse.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, people come to us Thanksgiving and Christmas, and we are not going to be. We don't like being isolated, and we really miss being out more. But we still trying to be careful. And we're trying to be good stewards of my health and try to give us as many years here as I can.
Good.
But I'm hoping if it does look like there's many good reasons why I think after the first of the year, when it starts to warm up in the spring, we ought to be able to get out a lot more. I'm pretty hoping.
Here's a question for you as far as getting out. Is there any place in Pittsburgh that's showing the C.S. Lewis movie coming out?
John and I,
tomorrow?
funny you should ask, Kath. John and I
Wednesday
are going
night.
to see it Wednesday evening.
Okay, it's the most reluctant
Well, we've
convert.
seen it. Max McLean, as you know, the star that Max McLean was at Redeemer, has been at Redeemer for years, and a good friend. And he sent us a link because he knew we couldn't get out to it, and we watched it, and we were
It's wonderful.
We expected it to be good, but it was actually better than we thought.
No kidding.
High production values. And he, by the way, has just nailed it. He not only looks like Lewis, but he sounds exactly like Lewis. Seriously, he just nailed it.
Excellent.
Oh, isn't that fantastic?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And I wept because I was so happy that they had treated someone who's so important in my life and Tim's life too with artistic excellence rather than just something that was dashed off on a wing and a prayer on a low budget. So I was really, really happy they had done as well as they did.
Good. But it's only going to see like a very super limited release, right?
just 2
Well,
Well, I
places.
in
think
the-
that
in the
depends on how
theaters.
many people come.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
if they'll open it up to more places if it's really quite well attended.
Yeah, I think the way things are different now in general. It's even true for the big blockbusters. They don't know it's going to be in theaters, but they're hoping it'll be released, maybe shown on television, streamed, that kind of thing. But I don't know if Kathy's right, believes this is the same thing I do. One of the only things is it's a beautiful story of how an incredibly smart incredibly deeply educated atheist became a Christian. The only thing I worried about was, I think, as I was listening to it, it's all taken straight out of his books. I mean, he goes around. It's excerpts from Surprised by Joy and Mere Christianity, where he's explaining. His letters. It's just incredibly good. But like, none of us are anywhere near as educated as he was, and I wonder a little bit. I said it's fascinating. I don't know who's going to exactly. He's a guy who was had that education. By the time he was 15, he'd already read pretty much everything in Greek and Latin that was available, and then he was moving on. And you say, "Gosh, we're so different." And yet, I still think
was a real regular guy, though. He was.
But he was a regular guy. He was. He just loved the
Despite
science.
his-
Yeah, he was
Right. Well,
great.
today though, I think we are maintaining the regular guy part, but we don't have the
Intellectual heft.
right that he had,
No.
and that's the part of us that our culture that I think is missing.
Right, but it is extraordinarily. It's so impressive to see how Christianity was big enough to fill the mind and heart of a man whose mind and heart was that big. I mean, I think that's
really good.
bottom line. It was an enormous sized mind, and for Christianity to be not only enough to fill it but to overflow it.
Isn't that?
That's quite a testimony.
And it sure is. Well, we'll email you guys, let you know what we thought after
Yeah, we can't
Wednesday
wait to
night.
go.
We can't
Thanks
wait.
for that preview, guys. You made us even more excited than we already are.
Good.
Okay, listen, we've only got a minute left. Kath, we hope that your COVID test for sure comes back negative. Tim, tell us how you're feeling.
Yeah, how are you feeling, Tim?
Actually, because I don't have my infusion till Wednesday. In other words, whenever you talk to me the Monday before the infusion, I feel not only perfectly fine, but I almost feel like I can't really have cancer.
Yeah.
I mean, there's these 2 days before the infusion, I come back completely from all the side effects, and at that point, for both Kathy and I, we look at each other and say, "Is this? It can't be real. I don't have cancer. I'm fine." But of course, I do, and yet I'm doing. In some ways, I mean, God has been incredible, listening to our prayers, because I'm doing still pretty well, even though I still got the cancer. So.
Well, we love talking to you guys.
Yeah,
and
thanks for sharing.
We pray for you guys all the time. We never forget. And so we're just happy to keep you close, kind of as extended Pittsburghers. And we've kind of grafted you in, Tim.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Be well, guys. Love you guys. Take care.
Thanks.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
All right.
Okay, talk soon.
Tim and Kathy Keller. She's a Yinzer, and as Kath said, Tim's been grafted in as well. It's very good. We'll take a quick break.
The
When we do
kindness
come
of
back, does this make sense? That's coming up next. Does this
guessing it
make
does.
sense? It's our daily feature.
Does this make sense?
Does what make sense?
Airline snacks.
No, 100% no.
Wow.
No.
That could be the
the
fastest
worst.
response we've
I mean, seriously.
yet had since we started this game.
I mean, you remember, do you remember, I mean, flying on a plane and having like a meal?
yes,
And,
Yep.
all that.
I do.
And now, I mean, first of all, no one is raging in the aisle.
But you're
grateful
hoping
for
that no one's going to punch a
Right.
flight attendant.
And then, they maybe will throw you a bag of like 2 ounces of pretzels. They're the worst. If you're traveling, I'm always carrying my own
Me
snacks.
too.
Forget that.
Of course, they don't make sense.
No.
Now, one time I can say, if you're on
living-
if you're on an international flight,
They take care of you.
I flew to the Far East, Japan Air,
Oh,
they're on it.
they've got it down. Isn't
You
that a
want to
beaut-
feel like you are a privileged
You fly
traveler.
Japan Air.
You fly Japan Air.
Yeah, I agree. 100%.
So, but other than that,
If you're
absolutely does not
fortunate.
make sense.
I agree. All right, does this make sense? Nicknames. Now we were out at we were doing Halloween last night.
Mm-hmm.
This little boy shows up, and Mom says, "Come on, Smiley." And I was like, "Hold on, wait. Who's Smiley?" And all of a sudden, Smiley, this kid was probably like 6. He leans into me and gives me this massive 10,000 megawatt cheese ball smile. I go, "Oh, you're Smiley." She goes, "You got it. There's my Smiley right there. He's always going to be my Smiley." So the mom named him.
Okay.
I don't know what his name was, but to the mom, she was saying, "That's my Smiley." In that instance, I think nicknames make sense. Now, there used to be a time where nicknames, every kid in the neighborhood had a nickname.
Listen, in my dad's family, every man had a nickname.
Yeah.
Nobody went by their name except my uncle. For some reason, went by his name, but it seemed like everybody else had a nickname.
Now,
Nobody has nicknames. Is that an ethnic thing?
I don't know. I think to me, it's kind of like on the playground thing, right? Guys hanging out together on the playground playing whatever, or, whatever. I just think it's,
I grew up thinking it was a Polish thing. Like,
No, I don't
it
think
was
so.
an immigrant kind of perspective or, tradition.
No. I mean, I had some nicknames from guys that we grew up with in our neighborhood that are unsayable.
I don't think we should say those, Christy.
But
Do
you know what I
think?
mean? But you know what I mean? That was
Yeah.
that was a neighborhood guy
Okay,
thing.
I like it, and I say nicknames make sense.
Nicknames. All right.
Airline snacks, except
Do
for
not make
except for
sense.
Japan Air,
Do you want a nickname?
maybe.
Now, we are not dating.
You and I?
You and I, or anyone really in our circle of friends. We are well beyond that.
Yes. I don't know any. I don't have. Well, I have some friends who are dating, but you don't know them, so I guess they're not
They're not my
They're
circle,
not
then.
in our circle.
However, I mean, the complexities of dating, I think no matter what your age, you may remember, harken back on your dating days and go, oh, what was I thinking there?
I think that about a lot of my dating.
Right? I saw a piece in today's Wall Street Journal that there's a new rule book for first dates, sweatpants and no makeup. Because on the online dating app, people are like, doing glamour shots and things like that. But they're saying now it may be more appropriate to just go, I'm going no frills. You see me as I am, who I am.
Right.
Does that make sense to you?
Christy Stockdale, I'd like to ask you,
Chime in on this.
immersed in the dating world right now, how do you feel about sweatpants, no makeup approach to dating?
I don't love it.
Okay.
Would you do it?
No.
So then you would consider when you go on a first date, you look your best.
I mean, you don't have to look your best, but look decent.
You want to put your best foot forward,
Like-
don't you?
Makeup?
Yeah.
Makeup.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Clothing. Would you wear sweatpants on a first date?
I would never wear sweatpants. And if he would, I would probably just walk right back out the door.
What if they were cashmere? Like we talked about that last week. Cool, cashmere sweatpants.
No.
No.
Too fussy. The
Too
guy
fussy.
showing up with the cashmere sweatpants.
Though, like wearing a nice pair, because society's so much more casual than it was when our parents were
Yeah.
dating. You would, like, if somebody came in a suit and tie, that'd be weird.
That'd be really weird.
Yeah.
So a nice pair of jeans. It's pretty simple.
That's what I
right?
mean. Yeah, you don't have to be like super dressed up,
No,
but
no.
look decent.
Right. Decent. You can't be like all stinky and wearing, some, T-top.
Okay, so what does it tell you when someone shows up looking like they don't give a care?
That they don't care or they're so into themselves
Exactly. That's
Right.
what I was thinking.
that they think that, I'm the be-all and end-all.
Right. They're overcompensating.
Right. Oh, wow. Holy smokes. Aren't I beautiful?
Right.
Right?
Forget it. I can't
Yeah,
stand that.
yeah.
Get out of here.
What do you think? Has anybody ever showed up, Christy, on like looking crazy with you on a first date?
Not sweatpants. Yes, they
Shorts?
have like shorts. We went to a nice restaurant and he wore shorts.
Shorts? Really? Was his choice to go to a nice restaurant?
Yes,
And he wears shorts?
he wore shorts, and I was really embarrassed.
And that was the end of that.
It wasn't, sadly.
Oh.
It wasn't.
It should have been,
Sadly.
though.
Sadly, it
It
wasn't.
should have been.
Now you know.
Right.
I do know.
Now
Looking
you
back, you're
know.
like, yeah, I should have cut
Yep.
it off.
Isn't that
right
funny,
Yep.
the things you learn from dating?
there. A lot.
I one time, this was not a first date, but I took a date of mine. I don't know why I did this to my mother's birthday party. And you know what she did? Sat in the other room and watched television by herself.
That's not a good impression that she
And I
made.
thought, done.
yeah, that's
over.
However, you were kind of putting her in a tough position.
No, I mean,
No,
it wasn't
yeah.
like
That's tough.
no. It was like hang
yeah,
out
you
with
were.
family.
It's not her family.
It wasn't a first date, and it wasn't the third date.
You're still hot about it, huh?
I'm just saying it was really poor behavior. All right.
All right. I still think that's a little bit of a tough place to put somebody in. It's kind of the equivalent today would be, okay, if he's not going to talk to me, I might as well look at my phone simply because I feel awkward and I don't know what else to do.
I'm not. I wasn't asking her to be like honor my mother
Well,
as like the
you might
matriarch
not
of
have
the family.
communicated that well.
No. It was like it was like 10 people there. He just sit down at the table, have a piece of cake, and laugh a little bit. That's all. I wasn't asking her for like some deep emotional commitment to my mom.
Okay, I went out on a first date.
Yeah.
And it was with a guy who was deeply involved in Habitat for Humanity. Okay, and so I knew of him, but we obviously never been on a date before. And during our dinner,
What do you mean you knew? Wait. What do you mean you knew of him?
we had like common friends.
Oh, okay.
Common friends. So anyway, we were eating dinner, and he was talking about how he was moving to Nigeria to work on a habitat project. And so as soon as he was done, he was going to graduate, and he was going to move to Nigeria for a 3-year commitment. And I was like, wow, that's really interesting.
that's impressive.
It's really,
Yeah,
it's
aren't you
great.
cool?
Anyway, so then we go to the post-dinner movie. Dances with Wolves is what it was. Kevin Costner, very poor film.
Yeah.
Anyway, I realized it was very long. Anyway, we're sitting there in the
Dinner and a movie.
dinner and a movie. We're sitting there in
That's
the
a lot.
theater as the previews are going.
Yeah.
And I pull out my Blistex, which I use obsessively, and acknowledge it, and I'm fine. That's who I am.
We're beyond that.
And he says to me, "Wow, you use that stuff a lot." And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Well, just get ready because they're not going to have that in Nigeria." And just then the lights went out for the movie to start.
That'll give you something to think about.
And I don't even remember the film because I kept thinking, this guy thinks that I'm going?
To Nigeria.
I mean, I'm not going.
That was a long movie.
That was that.
Yeah. What the heck? Mm-hmm. So,
Okay, so then fast forward to my husband,
yeah. Oh,
who
I love this one.
he showed up.
Your husband's no frills.
No, he has no frills. He showed up wearing a
First date?
No, this was not the first date, but this was a subsequent date, wearing a shirt that said "Elect Leroy Anthony" on the front, and on the back it said "For recording secretary." So what do you ask?
Who's Leroy Anthony?
And he said, "Oh, I don't know. I got it for free at the post office." Who's getting clothing at the post office?
Wait, elect Leroy Anthony for what?
Recording secretary.
Where would they give
So
it out?
then the best thing was,
Yeah.
I said to him, "So you just got that at the post office?" He said, "Oh, yeah, I got two." I said, "This one is for every day. I keep another one for dates."
And you married this man.
I know.
Elect Leroy Anthony for recording secretary.
Yep.
Two. One for the everyday wear, the
Yeah.
casual look. Hey, where's my good Leroy Anthony for recording secretary shirt? Where's my good one? Haven't seen that. Do you still have that? Has he ever kept it?
Oh, yeah. I have a picture of him in it. We just found it. Maybe we knew where it was. We just celebrated it anew over the summer.
Oh my gosh.
That's great.
Yeah. Well, God bless anybody who's out there in that dating pool.
That is so true.
That's rough stuff.
All right.
Christy.
After God bless you, Christy. After we come back, how did our picks from Friday turn out?
Oh, we
Yeah,
picked
good. Last segment of Friday's show, I
Not
felt
good.
very, very, very confident about 2/3 of the picks, and it turns out that I was wrong about 2/3 of the picks.
Yeah, Pitt, Steelers, Pens.
Pens. It's next. So each Friday, as we leave the air for the weekend, we make our picks, John and Christy and I. And we picked 3 games on Friday. And I got to be honest with you, things didn't pan out as we expected that they would.
All 3 of us did poorly. Right?
Yeah, we all ended up going 1-2 for the weekend. So Pitt, Miami, which was a horrific game to watch.
That was a good game.
It was not a good game.
That was a really good game
No,
to
it was
watch.
not a good game.
I really enjoyed watching it.
I didn't think it was a good game at all.
It was very
I
entertaining.
felt like the officials took over that game.
Yeah, well, that's...
Did you watch that game, Christy?
I didn't.
The officials took over that game. I don't know how many penalties there were. I should have looked it up before we went to air.
Was that a safety?
I
You
was.
think that was a safety?
Yes,
no,
it was.
I don't think it was. It was too close to call.
It was.
I don't think it...
He was over the line and then went back. How is that? I feel.
I don't know.
He ended up in the.
No,
I'm not going to argue about it.
Okay.
So Miami beat Pitt 38-34. And I seem to
heartbreaker.
recall both of you kind of lamenting how mistakenly, when I gave my pick on Friday, I picked Miami to beat Pitt. And you were both like, oh,
Well, I couldn't believe
you
it.
just give up on your alma mater. Listen, I should have stuck with that because all they do is break my heart.
How about that? How many? 550 yards or
I
something?
know. For Kenny Pickett.
Oh, Kenny Pickett's
And now he's out of the Heisman
Oh,
race. It's
come
over.
on. Well,
Oh,
he
yeah.
did throw two
It's over.
interceptions.
It's over. That's the way it is. The football season in college football is
It's
incredibly
unforgiving.
short and
It's
unforgiving and
yeah.
terrible. So Miami beat Pitt, and I hated it. And we all picked Pitt to beat Miami, so that was bad. And then the Devils at the Pens. So they've lost 3 in a row.
Pens.
That was bad.
Well,
that was
the
really bad.
expectations early on were like we were going to be bad, and they were good, and now they're
Yes,
being bad.
that's exactly
so it's
right.
like, okay.
That's exactly. And that was Sid's first game back.
We had high hopes for Sid, and he gave up that really bad penalty shot.
He did.
Yeah.
Because you can't just come back and have it all click in.
No, of course,
to
no
gear.
matter-
Supposed to be like
who
the
you are.
best player in the world.
I
Come
know.
on.
Yeah.
That
Okay.
may have
Well,
passed.
listen,
That may have
Christy's hacked off at Sid.
Yeah, you're right.
I am. I was ticked I even watched
Come
the game.
on.
That's something.
Come on.
So the Devils beat the Pens 4-2. But then the Steelers and Browns last night was a magnificent from
Magnificent.
halfway
It's a
through
train
the
wreck.
second quarter to the end. It was like I couldn't even. My heart was in my
Oh
throat.
my gosh.
It was great.
How about the play? I mean,
I
seriously,
loved
the
it.
hit
On
the
Boswell?
crisp- oh my god.
Did you watch this, Christy?
I did watch this.
How about Chris
Oh, my-
Boswell? First of all, he
Hope
looks
he's okay.
like if he makes the kick, he's going to get like a hot dog and orange drink as a reward. I mean, he's
Right.
like in 5th grade.
He
max.
is. He's like a junior high student.
It's really something.
He's listed at 185 pounds.
Which means he's 165.
right, and the guy who hit him
Yeah.
was listed at 308,
Which means
probably
he's
330.
Right.
Did you see his social media post?
No.
Who's?
Chris
Boswell's?
Boswell, yeah.
No.
He said dressed up as a quarterback for Halloween, got spooked.
Oh, he sure
Oh,
did.
that's a good post.
So
was good.
no concussion, right? I mean,
Yeah, concussion.
He was concussed.
Oh yeah, he was concussed.
But no, ligament
death, you
damage.
mean? Which is what it
Right.
looked like?
Right. No whiplash.
He's alive.
No, he's probably in some PT is what he's doing.
It's just look. Cleveland continues to be terrible.
Can you
the
imagine
best I
being a
can
Browns
say.
fan?
It would be a
How brutal that
sad,
is.
sad
I
day,
mean,
and so I'm glad I'm not.
You would think the Steelers were ripe to have their clocks cleaned.
They
but
weren't.
They prevailed.
No.
Thank you,
It was a
Ben.
good game for Ben. It was a good game for Tomlin,
It was.
especially after that horrendous play.
Shaky. Hey, have a great night. And we'll see you tomorrow, God willing.